Hello students, welcome to the lecture on Production and Operations Planning. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain strategy analysis, discuss on setting strategic direction, understand the action plan to improve productivity and situation analysis, define the aggregate planning, differentiate between strategic and tactical planning, differentiate between aggregate planning in manufacturing and aggregate planning in services. Understand the term capacity planning. Explain long-term and short-term capacity planning. Let's start with the concept of production and operations management. Production operations management is the process which combines and transforms various resources used in the production operations subsystem of the organization into value-added product services in a controlled manner as per the policies of the organization. Therefore, it is that part of an organization which is concerned with the transformation of a range of inputs into the required product services having the requisite quality level. The set of interrelated management activities which are involved in manufacturing certain products is called as production management. Let us now discuss the strategy analysis. Strategy analysis may be looked upon as the starting point of the production and operations planning. It consists of the advance work that must be done in order to effectively formulate and implement strategies. Many strategies fail because managers may want to formulate and implement strategies without a careful analysis of the overarching goals of the organization and without a thorough analysis of its external and internal environment. Analyzing organization goals and objectives. Organizations must have clearly articulated goals and objectives in order to channel the efforts of individuals throughout the organization towards common ends. Goals and objectives also provide a means of allocating resources effectively. Analyzing the external environment. Managers must monitor and scan the environment as well as analyze competitors. Such information is critical in determining the opportunity and threats in the external environment. We provide two frameworks of the external environment. First, the general environment consists of several elements such as demographic, technological, and economic segments form which key trends and events can have a dramatic impact on the firm. Second, the industry environment consists of competitors and other organizations that may threaten the success of a firm's products and services. Assessing the internal environment. A useful framework for analyzing a firm's internal environment helps to identify both strengths and weaknesses that can, in part, determine how well a firm will succeed in an industry. Analyzing the strengths and relationships among the activities that constitute a firm's value chain, example, operations, marketing and sales, and human resource management, can be a means of uncovering potential sources of competitive advantage for the firm.
Navigating in today's chaotic business environments is much like trying to steer a tiny boat back to shore while caught in the center of a hurricane. There are many forces at work that a person will need to respond to in order to make it safely back to port. Just like this tiny ship, today's organizations and their managers are faced with a significant amount of factors that require an immediate response, often in the form of organizational change. The forces that drive this change in business are known as the internal and external environments. This lesson will discuss how both the internal and external environments of an organization induce change. The internal environment of an organization refers to events, factors, people, systems, structures, and conditions inside the organization that are generally under the control of the company. The company's mission statement, organizational culture, and style of leadership are factors typically associated with the internal environment of an organization. As such, it is the internal environment that will influence organizational activities, decisions, and employee behavior and attitudes. Changes in the leadership style, the organization's mission, or culture can put considerable impact upon the organization. The external environment are those factors that occur outside of the company that cause change inside organizations and are, for the most part, beyond the control of the company. Customers, competition, the economy, technology, political and social conditions, and resources are common external factors that influence the organization. Even though the external environment occurs outside of an organization, it can have a significant influence on its current operations, growth, and long-term sustainability. Ignoring external forces can be a detrimental mistake for managers to make. As such, it is imperative that managers continually monitor and adapt to the external environment, working to make proactive changes earlier on rather than having to take a reactive approach, which can lead to a vastly different outcome. In order for managers to react to the forces of internal and external environments, they rely on environmental scanning. Environmental scanning refers to the monitoring of the organization's internal and external environments for early signs that a change may be needed, to accommodate potential opportunities or threats, and to make adjustments to allow the company's strengths to combat its weaknesses. If you recall, one common type of environmental scan is the SWOT analysis, which looks specifically into the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the internal and external environments. A manager will begin by analyzing the internal environment by looking into inefficiencies inside the organization, and will then look outside to the external environment and things occurring independent of the organization. Environmental scans allow managers to use the knowledge gained during this scanning process to decide what strategic steps, changes, the organization needs to take to create or maintain a competitive advantage. To better understand changes in the internal environment, let's look at the following example. After graduating from college, Cassandra decided to buy an existing tanning salon in her community. Before Cassandra purchased the salon, it was in terrible financial trouble. Many of the employees complained about the general manager's leadership style, and the staff were often confused about what products and services they offered at the salon because the manager continuously implemented his next bright idea with little warning, most of which were complete failures. Cassandra knew that if she was ever going to be able to bring any level of success to the salon, she needed to make several changes to the internal environment of the tanning salon. The first thing Cassandra did was to fire the existing manager because of his ineffective leadership style. She replaced the manager with someone who practiced a leadership style that was better aligned with the company and its employees. Next, Cassandra spent time developing a clear mission of the company and communicated the new mission to all employees. Over the next several months, Cassandra spent time getting to know her employees and worked hard to foster a culture that was positive and rewarding. All of these changes made by Cassandra were necessary due to the internal forces that were pushing for change, and with the help of her employees, Cassandra was able to bring the much-needed changes to the internal environment of the company. If we return to the example of Cassandra's tanning salon, we can also find some external forces that required additional change at the tanning salon. If you remember, one of the major issues the staff was having with the previous general manager was his continuous changing of products and services at the salon. What his staff did not know was that he was trying to respond to external factors relating to changing customer demands. As a result, Cassandra spent time talking to her customers to find out what they really want in a tanning salon and was sure to make any changes necessary to accommodate those demands. Additionally, because of the struggling economy, Cassandra needed to ensure her pricing was affordable to her clients and comparable to what her competition was offering for similar tanning services and products at their salons.
Now, moving on to the next topic, we will study setting strategic direction. In most cases, innovation occurs after an extensive amount of work dedicated to a particular aspect of the business or market. Due to the amount of resources often required to make an innovation a success, it is vital that we strategically set our focus on achieving specific targets. As part of the planning process, we need to look at where we want business to be in the future. This allows us to work backwards by selecting future targets, developing strategies to achieve those targets, and then communicating the direction the business is taking to team. Future planning will also help us to set time frames within which we need to achieve goals and will allow us to budget for future expenses related to the innovation process. Everyone may want to direct the focus of their innovations to a certain area of the business from which they have identified potential for improvement. Try not to limit their team to only working towards a single target, but rather encourage and direct them towards what they are looking for. No one does not want to miss out on an opportunity or great idea simply because it falls outside of main focus. The plans we put in place may not be definitive and they are likely to change as time goes by, but they should give us a general direction for the business that is strategically aimed at achieving certain outcomes. Any strategic direction or targets that are in place should be adaptable and changes should be made to reflect changes in the market. Let's move to the next topic. 4 programs improve our production systems and processes while maintaining competitive costs. These are internal business processes. Implement an annual program of reviewing business processes throughout the department. The program's objectives are Business Process Initiative, Improve Development Plan Review Process, Processes Action Teams, Promote internal cooperation and collaborative problem solving through temporary multidisciplinary teams formed to solve a problem or improve production systems and processes. Program and project management. Develop business processes to manage departments' various funding programs and project management to ensure efficient resource utilization and on-time schedule accomplishment. Benchmarking program. Learn from best-in-class organizations that perform similar functions and processes. Vigorously evaluate on how department performs a process and then evaluate and contrast how the organization we are comparing performs the function. Also known as situational analysis, situation analysis is the process of identifying and evaluating all relevant factors connected with a particular situation. This type of approach may take place as a means of uncovering something that is not working right within a project or production process, or as a way of projecting the potential outcome of an action given the circumstances that prevail at the present time. When used effectively, the process of situation analysis can minimize financial losses, boost marketing efforts, and generally make it possible to achieve and even exceed the expectations for a project. One common application of situation analysis has to do with the marketing process. Here, the emphasis of the process has to do with looking at core factors that determine the success or failure of a given marketing campaign. In order to maximize the potential of the campaign, marketing professionals will consider the specifics of the intended customer base and evaluate which methods can be used to reach those customers to best effect. The cost of the goods or services sold to consumers is also looked at closely, since the idea is to earn a profit from selling those products. Last, the marketing professional will look closely at the competition and determine what can be done to prompt consumers to turn away from competitors and favor the products marketed in the campaign instead. This process is often referred to as the 3 C's and can be applied to just about any type of marketing plan. Situation analysis also works very well when looking at internal procedures within a business. For example, if the cost of production is higher, then management believes it should be examining the situation in detail can yield clues as to what can be done to lower the overall cost. As part of the analysis, factors such as labor, the cost of raw materials, the efficiency of any equipment used in the production process, and even the cost of packaging will come under scrutiny. If conducted properly, the analysis will identify any areas where improvements can be made and what effect they will have on the overall cost of production. One form of situation analysis that is commonly used in many different situations is known as SWOT analysis. With this model, the goal is to identify and evaluate all strengths, areas of weakness, potential opportunities, and possible threats associated with a given project or process. This basic approach can be used for everything from reworking operational processes to gaining a competitive advantage in an aggressive market.
Are you looking for an analysis for your marketing plans? Learning how to market online is a science, and once you know the formula, anyone can do it. What you need is a situation analysis for marketing plans. The most important part of your marketing plan will be the situation analysis. This is part of the strategy that details the goals you have for your company, the strengths and weaknesses of the company, as well as the essential elements like the distributors, the most important partners, and most important of all, it will describe who your target customer is. The situation analysis for marketing plans includes everything that you need to know about your company in order to do business successfully. The situation analysis for marketing plans will provide a detailed description of the competition you have and what their strengths and weaknesses are. It will also detail the means you plan to use to exploit their weaknesses and make them your strengths. The situation analysis will not be written in a few hours. It can take months before you figure out all the logistics that make up this analysis. You will have to think carefully and research even more carefully in order for you to compose an analysis that benefits you and allows you to see the truth in your business. One of the key elements here is being able to recognize where your shortcomings lie and figuring out strategic ways to work around those shortcomings. Everyone has parts of the business that they are weaker at than other parts. You may be very strong at the production part of the business and less strong at the sales or distribution components. Being able to see where you need to improve or change your tactics will help you to have a stronger company. Being able to identify the target audience and profile them will allow you to drastically increase your sales. You are not going to have sales that are extremely high in numbers if you are not targeting the right audience with your product. When the advertising that you are paying for is reaching the people who are most likely to buy the product, you have then the sales numbers go up. That is an elementary concept to marketing. You do not need to advertise ladies' lipsticks in men's locker rooms and expect the same amount of sales at the company that advertise their lipstick in women's locker rooms. Your company needs a goal, and you need to work towards achieving that goal. You can allow the company to amble through existence without a direct path, but if you do, the company will not achieve the success and the growth that a company with a plan and a direction will achieve. The situation analysis marketing plans that you establish will allow you to see the problems you need to address and address them. It will also allow you to see where you're doing things right and build on those strengths. Knowing where you want to go and the best route to take to get you to that place is one of the major parts to winning the battle. You see, it's all about marketing, and it's all about your strengths in marketing and your weaknesses.
Attempts to match the supply of and demand for a product or service by determining the appropriate quantities and timings of inputs, transformation, and outputs. Decisions made on production, staffing, inventory, and back order levels. An organization can finalize its business plans on the recommendation of demand forecast. Once business plans are ready, an organization can do backward working from the final sales unit to raw materials required. Thus, annual and quarterly plans are broken down into labor, raw material, working capital, etc. requirements over a medium range period, 6 months to 18 months. This process of working out production requirements for a medium range is called aggregate planning. Characteristics of aggregate planning. Considers a planning horizon from about 3 to 18 months with periodic updating. Looks at aggregate product demand stated in common terms. Looks at aggregate resource quantities stated in common terms. Possible to influence both supply and demand by adjusting production rates, workforce levels, inventory levels, etc., but facilities cannot be expanded. Production plan, manufacturing aggregate plan. A managerial statement of the period by period, time-phased production rates, workforce levels, and inventory investment given customer requirements and capacity limitations. Staffing plan, service aggregate plan. A managerial statement of the period by period staff sizes and labor related capacities given customer requirements and capacity limitations. Objectives of aggregate planning. Objectives of aggregate planning frequently is to minimize total cost over the planning horizon. Other objectives should be considered. Maximize customer service, minimize inventory investment, minimize changes in workforce levels, minimize changes in production rates, maximize utilization of plant and equipment. Aggregate planning strategies. Active strategy. Attempts to handle fluctuations in demand by focusing on demand management, use pricing strategies and or advertising and promotion, develop counter-cyclical products, request customers to back order or advance order, do not meet demand. Passive strategy, reactive strategy. Attempts to handle fluctuations in demand by focusing on supply and capacity management, vary workforce size by hiring or layoffs, vary utilization of labor and equipment through overtime or idle time, build or draw from inventory, subcontract production, negotiate cooperative arrangements with other firms, allow backlogs, back orders and or stock outs. Mixed strategy combines elements of both an active strategy and a passive reactive strategy. Firms will usually use some combination of the two. Factors affecting aggregate planning. Aggregate planning is an operational activity critical to the organization as it looks to balance long-term strategic planning with short-term production success. Following factors are critical before an aggregate planning process can actually start. Complete information is required about available production facility and raw materials. A solid demand forecast covering the medium range period. Financial planning surrounding the production cost, which includes raw material, labor, inventory planning, etc. Organization policy around labor management, quality management, etc. For aggregate planning to be a success, following inputs are required. An aggregate demand forecast for the relevant period, evaluation of all the available means to manage capacity planning like subcontracting, outsourcing, etc. Existing operational status of workforce, number, skill set, etc., inventory level and production efficiency. Aggregate planning will ensure that organization can plan for workforce level, inventory level and production rate in line with its strategic goal and objective. Aggregate planning as an operational tool. Aggregate planning helps achieve balance between operation goal, financial goal and overall strategic objective of the organization. It serves as a platform to manage capacity and demand planning. In a scenario where demand is not matching the capacity, an organization can try to balance both by pricing, promotion, order management and new demand creation. In scenario where capacity is not matching demand, an organization can try to balance the both by various alternatives such as laying off, hiring excess, inadequate workforce until demand increase, including overtime as part of scheduling, thereby creating additional capacity, hiring a temporary workforce for a fixed period or outsourcing activity to a subcontractor. Importance of aggregate planning. Aggregate planning plays an important part in achieving long-term objectives of the organization. Aggregate planning helps in achieving financial goals by reducing overall variable cost and improving the bottom line. Maximum utilization of the available production facility. Provide customer delight by matching demand and reducing wait time for customers. Reduce investment in inventory stocking. Able to meet scheduling goals, thereby creating a happy and satisfied workforce. Moving on to the next topic. Many small business owners and operators do not spend much time planning for their business success. The biggest reason, in my opinion, is that they are not aware how easy it can be. Most owners, when they hear the words strategic planning or tactical planning, get a glazed-eyed look on their faces. Actually, these can be rather simple tasks to manage if understand a few things about them. Instead, most business operators are in a state of confusion about what each of these terms mean. The reason for this confusion stems from the fact that both words are closely connected and unfortunately used interchangeably. Yet, in business terminology, the words strategy and tactics refer to separate business functions and practices. Strategy sets the stage. In real-world business usage, the term strategy actually is the thinking process required to plan a change, course of action, or organization. Strategy defines or outlines the desired goals and why we should go about achieving them. The strategic planning phase involves business thinkers, the small business owner, determining why and in a global sense what we will achieve in stated goals. Owners or upper management decide what the guiding philosophy and values will be and how people involved in the business's operations should act in attaining their objectives. It can be a compilation of many complex, multifaceted plans created for achieving pre-established objectives. But tactics is the play. Tactics are the specific actions we take in implementing our strategy. These actions comprise what is to be done, in what order, using which tools and personnel. We may employ a number of tactics and involve many different departments and people in this effort to reach a common goal. We may even recruit suppliers to accomplish objectives. Tactics typically requires the involvement of the organization as a whole. Strategic planning process. To understand the differences better, here are some notable points to consider with respect to strategic planning. When doing strategic planning, we need to determine specifically what outcome we want to achieve. These are objectives and how we will measure the results. In addition, we need to establish a realistic baseline or starting point. Include in our planning a picture of internal and external realities that will impact plan. This dictates that we do relevant research, competitive, market, etc. We will then need to craft an aggressive action plan to take advantages of opportunities discovered during research. This will include a listing of defined strategic objectives with the tactics we expect to use to achieve them. The plan should reflect both perceived challenges and the expected end results in order to be complete. To ensure support for the strategy, it is advisable to conduct consensus building exercises for the company. We might include marketing, sales, customer service, and other personnel inside and outside organization. Any uncertainties and risks will be sure to surface at this point in the strategic planning process.
So, have you heard about the strategic plan?
What strategic plan? More work for us?
Well, I heard there was a district-wide plan developed this past summer. The plan was developed with the input of over 80 school employees.
Wow, that sounds impressive. I wonder how long it took to create the plan?
I am sure Mr. Rawls will explain it all to us, but I think it took the team weeks to create.
I wonder who was involved.
It was a combination of teachers, administrators, and other school employees. They came up with pillars and vital signs based on the Long Branch School District.
What do you mean pillars and vital signs? Are we sick?
Well, the pillars are supposed to reflect the district standards and core beliefs. And the vital signs are indicators of areas that we need to focus on. We will use the plan as a guide. During the year we will focus on meeting the goals and objectives of this plan.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Tactical planning process. In tactical planning, we need to understand and decipher the strategic goals, then identify the courses of action we will need to achieve those strategic objectives. Tactical planning is developed by those who deal with getting the work done day by day. They draw up a tactical plan so they know what to do, when they need to do it, and this will help them deal with the how part of the plan. The main question for them is, how can the strategic goals accomplished within the designated limits of resources and authority? The only way that can happen is to ensure that the tactics create results which lead to the strategic benefits we desire. As a small business owner, we need to make plans that include specific activities that are arranged on specified time frames and have specific outcomes. Ensure the performance of all tactical planning activities and calculate their effects. Then, help connect the tactical moves to the strategic plan. Aggregate planning involves developing, analyzing, and maintaining the operational schedule of an organization. It organizes areas of business that include targeted sales, forecasts, production levels, inventory levels, and customer backlogs. When aggregate planning is carried out effectively, the effects of short-sighted daily scheduling are minimized. Capacity and demand are balanced in a way that minimizes costs, where aggregate resources may include the total number of workers, hours of equipment and machine time, or tons of raw materials. Techniques. The techniques for aggregate planning include informal trial and error that utilize simply graphs or tables as well as advanced mathematical techniques. Aggregate planning requires the demand for each period to be determined, followed by determining the capacity for each period which should match demand. Companies, departmental or union policies that are pertinent are then identified. unit costs for the total number of units produced and the cost associated with making changes in capacity are also taken into account. Alternative plans and computational costs for each are developed as a result. The plan that best satisfies the business objectives is chosen. This is normally the plan with the lowest cost. Manufacturing. Aggregate planning in manufacturing involves allocating the correct amount of resources for every manufacturing process so that the time and costs are minimized during idle mode. Manufacturing businesses use either the chase strategy or the level strategy. The chase strategy involves matching demand and capacity period by period. This strategy could trigger a considerable amount of hiring or firing workers, increased inventory carrying costs, labor union problems, and utilization of plant and equipment. The advantage of the chase strategy is that inventory is held at the lowest level possible, meaning large savings for the company. Services. Since services do not involve stockpiles or inventory, service-focused businesses do not have the luxury of building up their inventories during periods of low demand. In aggregate planning, services are considered perishable, where any capacity that is unused is considered to be wasted. For example, an empty hotel room or an empty flight seat cannot be held and sold at a later time. Services have variable processing requirements that make it hard to establish a good measure of capacity. Differentiation. Aggregate planning in manufacturing works well because of the ability to produce, hold, and sell inventory at any given time. Alternatively, aggregate planning in services differs substantially because services cannot be inventoried. The demand for services is much more difficult to predict, and capacity is also difficult to measure. Service capacity must be provided at the right place and the right time, while labor is generally the most constraining service resource. The production system design planning considers input requirements, conversion process, and output. After considering the forecast and long-term planning, organizations should undertake capacity planning. Capacity is defined as the ability to achieve, store, or produce. For an organization, capacity would be the ability of a given system to produce output within the specific time period. In operations, management capacity is referred as an amount of the input resources available to produce relative output over a period of time.
Good afternoon. Capacity is the maximum output of an organization, piece of equipment, or worker.
Peak capacity is the maximum output rate that can be achieved in the short term under ideal conditions. Let's look at Nike shoes. To reach peak capacity, they must know the cost of material, demand of the product, labor fees, cost of production, break-even point, and many other things. Effective capacity is the maximum output that a business can economically sustain under normal circumstances for an extended time period.
For Nike to be effective, they must also know non-normal circumstances such as competition, economic forces, and laws and regulations.
The following 4 steps are used to determine future capacity needs. 1. Estimate future capacity requirements. 2. Identify gaps between existing capacity and projected requirements. 3. Develop alternate strategies for addressing these gaps. 4. Choose the most appropriate alternate, based on both qualitative and quantitative assessments. Other factors to consider include time, location, volatility of demand, and service quality. In closing, we believe capacity planning is important for any company's success and longevity.
In general, terms capacity is referred as maximum production capacity, which can be attained within a normal working schedule. Capacity planning is essential to be determining optimum utilization of resource and plays an important role in decision-making process. For example, extension of existing operations, modification to product lines, starting new products, etc. Strategic capacity planning, a technique used to identify and measure overall capacity of production, is referred to as strategic capacity planning. Strategic capacity planning is utilized for capital-intensive resource like plant, machinery, labor, etc. Strategic capacity planning is essential as it helps the organization in meeting the future requirements of the organization. Planning ensures that operating cost is maintained at a minimum possible level without affecting the quality. It ensures the organization remains competitive and can achieve the long-term growth plan. Long-term capacity planning. Over the long term, capacity planning relates primarily to strategic issues involving the firm's major production facilities. In addition, long-term capacity issues are interrelated with location decisions. Technology and transferability of the process to other products is also intertwined with long-term capacity planning. Long-term capacity planning may evolve when short-term changes in capacity are insufficient. Short-term capacity planning. In the short-term, capacity planning concerns issues of scheduling, labor shifts, and balancing resource capacities. The goal of short-term capacity planning is to handle unexpected shifts in demand in an efficient economic manner. The time frame for short-term planning is frequently only a few days but may run as long as 6 months. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learnt in this lecture. Situation analysis is the process of identifying and evaluating all relevant factors connected with a particular situation. A managerial statement of the period-by-period staff sizes and labor-related capacities given customer requirements and capacity limitations. Aggregate planning helps achieve balance between operation goal, financial goal, and overall strategic objective of the organization. Aggregate planning plays an important part in achieving long-term objectives of the organization. Capacity is defined as the ability to achieve, store, or produce.